Thanks, Farah. Sorry. So, Puan Kyronisa actively promotes youth development and environmental sustainability in Brunei and in the region. She is currently a member of the Brunei Legislative Council, General Manager for Recover, co-founder and Community Engagement Director for Green Brunei, and Green Exchange Director for the Society for Community Outreach and Training. Her work primarily focuses on youth development through environmental advocacy, where she organizes camps, school talks, recycling drives, river and beach cleanups, and tree planting. She also founded the nation's first Green Depot, which enables communities to save food recycling as a means to promote waste management efforts while providing money habits. She is the recipient of the Zico ASEAN 40 Under 40 2018 Excellent Service Medal KB 2016, the Queen's Young Leaders Award 2015, ASEAN Youth Day Award 2014, and Youth Service Award 2013. The Green Age Program has also received the Outstanding Project for Youth Association Award from His Majesty, the Sultan of Brunei Darussalam, in conjunction with the National Youth Day in 2016. Meanwhile, Puan Dina Yahya is currently leading the Brunei Climate Change Secretariat based at the Ministry of Development. The first 12 years of her career was with Ministry of Energy, in which she started off with sustainable energy until assuming the role of the head of international affairs. She has been instrumental in shaping Brunei Darussalam climate change institutional framework and the country's first climate change policy, the Brunei Darussalam National Climate Change Policy. Dina graduated with a Bachelor in Sustainable Development from Murdoch University, Australia, and a Master in Energy Policy from the University of Exeter, United Kingdom. She was also a US ASEAN Fulbright Visiting Scholar at the Joint Program on the Science and Policy of Global Change at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, United States of America. This session will be moderated by our program creator, Shaun. Shaun, take the floor.
Good
Hey,
afternoon.
Shaun, you here?
Hey, good afternoon, YB Khairunnisa. Good afternoon, Puan Dina Yahya. How are you all today? And welcome to the Youth Empowerment Summit.
Thank you, Shaun. I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good. I'm just looking at my screen, and I'm not used. I always unpin myself because it's really strange to look at myself, on the spotlight. And let me
leave me
do
alone,
that.
Shaun. Don't leave me alone on the screen.
Is Puan Dina around?
Hi, Shaun. Hi, YB.
Hey, Dina, how are you?
Good to be here. I'm good. How are you?
Good. Very happy to have the both of you. I understand that Dina would be providing a presentation as a backdrop to why climate change is important to Brunei young people. So, before we start our conversation, I'd like to invite Dina to do her presentation.
Okay. Let me just share my slides.
A nice backdrop, by the way, YB Kyronisa and Dina.
Okay. Just checking. Are you able to see my full presentation slide?
Beautiful.
Yes. Okay. All right. Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A very good afternoon. My name is Dina from the Brunei Climate Change Secretariat. Thank you very much again, Shaun, for and also Bibd for inviting us on behalf of the Secretariat to share some of the country's efforts on climate change. So I always like to start with recapping what was happening around the world, usually the previous week. So these are the climate-induced disasters that are showing to be more and more intense. So it ranges from drought, landslides, flash floods, hurricane, and also forest fire. If you follow the news, so our neighbor Malaysia, they had a rainfall worth of 1 month in 1 day. So this has caused massive floods in the Shah Alam areas, and thousands of people were displaced. There were even casualties, and there was significant destruction to the built environment, houses, infrastructure in general. So this is a reminder for us, while we are trying to make efforts on climate action, trying to raise awareness. Nature do not wait. So our action must outpace the speed of nature. So we are indeed in a state of climate emergency. So it is very important that we really understand what climate change means. So climate change refers to long-term change in the climate patterns. This is caused by the increase in Earth temperature. So typically when the UV or sunlight radiates into the Earth, some of the heat is reflected back into the space, while some are retained and absorbed by the greenhouse gases within the atmosphere. So these greenhouse gases that are surrounding the atmosphere, as they increase, more and more heat are being absorbed and radiated back into the Earth. So this is, warming the Earth. So as the greenhouse gas emission in the atmosphere increases, we will feel that, more and more heat are being trapped. So this is like a blanket, the thicker your blanket is, the warmer you feel. So this is the same thing. So here, using satellite image, the global temperature was observed to have increased so far 1.1 degrees. So it's happening, climate change is happening. So we can see here from real data trend that the last 3 years was reported to be the 3 warmest years ever recorded. So it is quite scary. And we are reaching the 1.5 increase in temperature limit quite soon, actually. Okay. Yep. So this shows that we are getting there. So how soon will we be reaching 1.5? So it will be as soon as 2030. So this graph is perhaps too complicated, but just focus on these 3 points. So the first one, if we do not do anything to cut our emissions, the global temperature will increase to 4 degrees Celsius. Number 2, all pledges that were made by countries so far, if you hear that, country S have pledged to reduce this emission, this amount of emission, country B has pledged to go for net zero, for instance. So all these pledges, consolidated, it will only bring the global temperature increase to 2.7 degrees. So this is not enough. So what we need to aim to reduce the temperature increase limit to 1.5 by end of the century. So this is the Paris Agreement goal. But this 1.5 degrees temperature increase, we do not have to wait until 2100. It will most likely reach, there's a highly likelihood that we will reach it by 2030. So that's, 10 years from now, 9 years from now, 8 years from now, actually. Yeah, so this is a really scary scenario, but this is if we do not cut our emissions. So beyond the 2 degrees threshold, the impacts would be catastrophic and irreversible. So what do we need to reduce? What do we need to do to reduce the increase in global temperature from 4 degrees to 1.5? So collectively, we have to reduce the global greenhouse emission by 45% in the next 8 years. So that's not, the window is closing. And the world must reach a state of net zero or state of carbon neutrality by 2050. I will explain later on what net zero and carbon neutrality means. So what is at stake right now with the increasing greenhouse gas emission as well as the global temperature increase? So there are ranges of climate risk here. Some we can already see happening, and the more detrimental one we will start to see in the next 30 to 40 years time. So this is, we have young people here. This is, when this is your time in the next 30, 40 years. Weather will be more and more extreme. So it will compromise our food security, our built environment. We will start to see an increase in biodiversity loss, if not already. And climate-induced disasters will be more and more aggressive. There will be increase in vector-borne diseases, for instance, because they're susceptible to heat. And the one that will take precedence of all would be sea level rise. So it is predicted that the global sea level rise will increase up to 1.3 meters by end of the century. So we will see small islands would be underwater, and parts of Brunei even would be underwater. So all these risks that you see here will be more and more intense as the global temperature increases. So Brunei is very small, but are we really spared from climate change impacts? The answer is no. So we are already seeing a trend of change in our very own historical data. So for Brunei, we already see a trend of increase in our temperature We are also seeing a trend of increase in our rainfall pattern in terms of volume, but it's also, you can see that it's no longer, predictable. In terms of extreme weather, so this is the latest number of cases for disaster event in Brunei. So particularly floods, forest fire, landslides, and storm, because these are the 4 key impacts for Brunei. So you can see here that in the last 3 years, trends, especially for floods, landslide, and strong winds, are increasing. And what we know moving forward from here, these impacts will be more and more aggressive for our very own country. If we look ahead, our projection shows that by end of the century, our sea level rise will increase to about 1.1 meter. So this is very much aligned with the international prediction. So with most of our activities around the coastline, our economy, our built environment will significantly be affected. So we can see here our strategic areas, especially Syria. So this is where our heart of oil and gas activities are. Our capital city, we have PMB. This is where our new petrochemical plant is, will be under threat. If you see Blight district is technically gone. Yeah, so this is a very, very scary scenario. But again, this is if we do not cut our emissions. Because I mentioned by end of the century earlier on. So if you think 2100 or end of the century is too far away, we will already start to see the change as early as 2030, then from 2030 on up to the end of the century. So where are we in terms of our contribution to climate change? So for Brunei, our contribution is actually very, very small because Brunei is a small country. We only contribute to about 0.025% of the global greenhouse gas emissions. So this is very, very small. So, but zooming in, it is important that we understand what our greenhouse gas emission profile is. So for Brunei, so that we know where the most impact of change is. So from here, power generation makes about almost 70% of our power generation, in which 22% of that is to power your homes. So majority of our greenhouse gas emission in Brunei is for our industrial activities. So this is mainly to drive our economic growth. But nonetheless, a substantive share is also from each of us here as individual. So we're all equally guilty, okay? So this is from our electricity consumption as well as our cars. Forest is very important. So forest, especially for Brunei here, it acts like a sponge. So it absorbs the greenhouse gas emission that we emit. So up until 2020, our 72% forest coverage have been able to absorb majority, if not all, of our greenhouse gas emission. But unfortunately, this is no longer the case. So as we move on forward from here, we will see that our emissions will start to increase more than the ability or the capacity of our forest to absorb the emission. So therefore, it is very important that we preserve our forest. So think before cutting a tree. So what are our responses on climate action? So with the understanding that that even though Brunei only contributes, 0.025% of the global greenhouse emission, but the climate risk is very high. So we are very vulnerable to the changing climate. So this is important that we play our part in terms of reducing our very own emissions. So I will show you a very short video. So we have launched a consolidated climate change policy. This is to guide the country towards a low carbon and climate resilient pathways.
Is it supposed to be sound?
Sorry, Shaun. Yes, there's supposed to be a sound. Can you not?
No.
Able to?
No. Are you able to?
Sorry.
Do you see
Hold on.
three
How do I
dots?
do that?
The 3 dots on top of your.
3 dots.
And then click share computer sound.
I don't.
Oh,
Hold
you
on.
don't
Let
have
me
the
just
3
figure
dots?
this out. Okay, maybe I just need to.
Miss Dina, you can try to unshare first, and then upon sharing, there would be three dots that you'd see. It says share screen, share sound or optimize sound. Thank you.
DNCCP shall adopt 10 key strategies. Reduce overall emissions and achieve zero flaring. Plant new 500,000 trees. Increase electric vehicle sales to 60%. Increase renewable energy share to at least 30%. Increase efficiency for electricity in both supply and demand side. Impose price on carbon emissions. Reduce municipal waste to landfills. These mitigation strategies could cut Brunei's overall GHG emissions by more than half. Enhancing climate resilience and adaptation is as equally important. In keeping the country's GHG emissions in check, reporting of inventories will be made mandatory. Finally, participation by all levels of the society through awareness and education as the most important tool.
Yeah, so this is the most important tool, strategy number 10. So I think this is an opportunity for us through this platform to increase awareness on climate change. So the video has explained to you the 10 key strategies that we have outlined. So this is just to show that this is really a whole of nation approach. If you can see here, it's not just us doing all the work, but it's championed by all the 4 ministries. So we have the Ministry of Energy, Ministry of Transport and Info Communication, Ministry of Primary Resources and Tourism, and the Ministry of Development. So the different ministries would champion different strategies. And so far we have been quite effective in terms of working together, you know, to integrate all the climate action by the Brunei Climate Change Secretariat. Okay, this is very necessary because climate change cuts across the different sectors. So it is very important that different ministries work together. So not just ministries, also the NGOs, private sectors also need to work together in these different strategies. So in concretizing our commitment, we have pledged to reduce our greenhouse gas emission by 20% by 2030. So this is part of our commitment to the Paris Agreement. So anything that we pledge under the Paris Agreement is legally binding. So this is so Brunei takes this very seriously, and we, through the policy that that you saw earlier, hopefully will bring our emissions down to 20% by in the next 8 years. The reason I show the globe here, because I think it's very an important reminder for us that we share the atmosphere, so climate change cannot be addressed by one country alone. Even we pledged 20%, as you remember earlier on, our contribution is only 0.25. So it needs every single countries in the world to play their part, especially the developed countries. Climate change is complex. The issue is so big, so it needs global action. Just to share on the COP26, I don't know whether you know about COP26. So climate change has to be done through multilateral process. As you saw earlier, not just, even in Brunei, we have to bring together all the different ministries. So at international level, it has to be through multilateral process. So for COP26 in Glasgow this year, it was mainly about accelerated ambition, about balanced approach, and about commitment. So the emphasis on 1.5 degrees were very, very strong. And we saw over 120 leaders came to COP26, and majority of them pledged for net zero by 2050, the very least. So if we put together all these net zero pledges, the temperature limit will only be decreased to 2.2 degrees, still not enough. We need to reach 1.5. So even Brunei, we took the opportunity to express our intention to go for net zero by 2050. Okay. Other outcomes from COP26 were commitment to preserve forests, as well as to accelerate renewable energy and phasing out coal. So for Brunei, we have also committed to both of this commitment.
Wow, what a comprehensive insight on climate change. Thank you so very much.
Oh my God, so sorry. What happened? I'm so sorry. My apologies. I was your
not at all. Not at all. I am extremely grateful to learn so much about climate change. But one thing that is just recurring on my mind, as you say, is the 0.025%. So what is the case for us, not just young people, but everyone, right? I would like to invite YB Kyronisa to answer this. Yeah, I'll give her the hard one, right? You've been speaking so much. Get a sip of water, right? And then you come and help YB Khairunnisa, right? So what is the case for all of us, to change our lifestyle, to do everything right in terms of climate change, if all we can effect in the world is 0.025%? Does it really matter? Why should youth get behind this movement?
Okay, I'll try to do my best to answer this question. It's a very valid question. It's something that we do get asked a lot. Brunei is such a small country. We contribute very little. What impact can we really do with the small actions we do in Brunei? Will other countries actually even hear about what we do? Do our actions really matter? But to be honest, I think I can link this up to your previous discussion on happiness, when you start giving things, take things back. When you give things, are you giving it with the intention of waiting for people to hear about what you've given? Or are you doing it because you know it's the right thing to do? So I think that's also the same answer that I would give to that question as well. We do the right thing. And in this case, it's the more eco-friendly approaches in our decision, making more choices that are right for the environment, right for the society, because it's the right thing to do. So we don't do it because we think that it's going to create a huge dip in the climate impact, but rather because it's the one way we can move forward as a society as a whole. You know how they say, like, sometimes it's just sikit-sikit lamba-lamba jadi bukit, right? So this applies to this as well. The small actions that we do today can create a ripple effect that will eventually create bigger impacts in the future as well. So we don't really have to really find that strong connection between our actions and the global impact, but just do our part here in Brunei, and then eventually the impact will roll out on itself. You
remind me of the starfish story, YB Kyronisa. Yeah. Are you familiar with the starfish story?
Yes, definitely. Yeah. Helping one starfish, you're making a difference to that one starfish, even though you feel that your action is just one tiny action for a million starfish that are still stranded on the beach.
Dina, what YB Kyronisa has alluded to is a more philosophical approach to looking at our effect on climate change. What about you? Do you have any different point of view as to why we should be paying attention, why we should do our part as a community on saving the planet?
I think, sorry again for taking too much time, but from my presentation, it was very evident that this is happening. Whether we like it or not, it is happening. And as I mentioned earlier in my presentation, nature do not wait. And it's going at a pace which is so fast. So we have to move faster than that. And so we all have to play our part. So it's very important that we all play our part, because without that, it will not work. And I think climate change is so complex. The issue is so big that we need everybody to be part of it. And it's also, we have to remember that climate action is a marathon. It's not a sprint. So we have to do it in a long haul. So we have to have the understanding, because people will get frustrated because they don't see the results next year, for instance. Yeah. So this is what we need to remember, that we need to, that consistent effort in terms of making changes needs to be there. Yeah.
Thanks for giving us a very macro view, Dina. I want to zoom into, what we can do collectively as a community, as a youth community specifically. So let's look at where we are right now in 2021, where we are, just coming out of the pandemic, and two of the biggest climate or environment catastrophe that came out of it is the tapao packaging, as well as the face mask everywhere you go on the street being littered. What are your thoughts, and what can we do about it? YB Kyronisa, you first.
Okay, yeah, definitely that is a huge problem that we're facing here in the region, globally as well. So I think this is the problem that we have right now. I think even prior to COVID itself, that sense that that moral sense of not littering is not really evident in a lot of people. So that is something that we really want to change for the society here in Brunei. So through Green Brunei, we've been doing cleanup projects, in the past 10 years. And the most frustrating comment that we always receive is, buang saja, sama je karang ada karang volunteer memutik tu. That mentality that somebody else will come back and then, pick up your trash after you. I mean, they say to our face, and then in one of the cleanups that I did, we had this cleanup in one of the Kampong Air parking lot, right? We were all carrying our trash bags and everything. And then this one person, he was just standing there watching us. Dia makan dia punya gula-gula. And you know what he did? He just threw the wrapper on the ground right in front of us. So this is the kind of problem that we face in our line of work. We try to lead by example. We try to showcase not just by talking, but by actually taking action. But people don't see it as a way to, as a form of awareness. People don't see it as a form of education. So that's the kind of mentality that we really, really need to change. And it's something that I think Dina said it perfectly. It's not it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's not something that we can change overnight. Of course, it takes time. It takes effort. And the more young people can come together as a community, that's how we can change that mindset. Because I think the more people are aware, the more that they will encourage their own families as well to be taking more responsibility as well. I think that's really the reason why we always work with children, always why we work with young people, because we want them to champion these messages within their own families as well.
So it's the battle of the environment. It's also the battle of the mind, isn't it?
Exactly.
Right. We will take one question, and then we go to a final question for the both of you. Anyone have any question, or shall I go to the next first? Okay. Junshan from ISB.
All right, thank you, Shaun. Actually, I have a lot of questions with regards to Brunei's climate action. It's impossible.
We'll have a special session with YB, Khairu, and Dina.
Yes. Wait. Sorry, that was what I was going to ask. Can we have a separate Zoom session?
Okay, we'll arrange for that. But okay, the real question.
That was my question, because I don't think I can ask all of it, and there's so many people here.
Okay. The answer is yes. I am committed, but we don't want to put the two ladies under the spotlight. All right, I would privately ask them if they are able to, but they have always been very generous with their time. So
Would be happy to.
I would like my chances. Sorry, Dina.
Yeah, we're happy to come into your schools when things are back to normal, when it's safe to have visitors. We would love to have, well, I'm speaking on behalf of Green Brunei, but I'm sure Dina and her team is also very excited to see and to be involved in your programs.
Okay. Joshua, what's your question?
Okay, so I have like two quick questions, just two. Yeah. You guys mentioned that Brunei wants to plant 500,000 trees by 2035. Sorry. Will the trees burned by like wildfires and be cut down have to be replanted again? That's my first one.
Yes.
Why not you ask the second question first, and then they will answer.
And the second question, will there be action taken to those who open burning and things like
I
that?
love that question. I hate open burning.
Okay, Dina, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but as far as I know, the trees that have been burned will have to be what do you call that? The plan is to actually replant trees that are lost due to forest fires as well. And as for open burning, yes, well, there is ACTA on open burning. Technically, you can take a police report if you find people burning, but there are certain guidelines on when you can open burn. So you do have to verify first with Justri on the details as well. It's not like a black and white, like you can burn, you cannot burn. So there are certain guidelines that they do have with regards to open burning as well, which is not something that is widely, I think, made known as well.
Dina, are you optimistic about the 500,000 trees by 2035?
Yeah. So far towards 500,000 trees by 2035. Every year we need to plant 44,000 trees. So this year, we managed to plant almost 37,000 trees, but because of COVID, a lot of activities, tree planting activities, were put on hold, and Green Brunei, YB here, have been, very active in terms of helping our private sectors, even government sectors, to plant their trees. We also have allocated 2,000 trees per ministry by end of the year. So every ministry in Brunei needs to plant 2,000 trees, because we believe that it has to be government first, before we ask other people to plant trees. Government, ourselves, we have to lead by example. So we are quite confident that we'll be able to plant 500,000 trees by end of 2035.
We would not be opening to any more questions. We are now 2 minutes to 3:20. Let me ask final question to the both of you. Rapid fire answer, okay? Why are you dedicating your life and your career into the cause of climate change? We'll start with Dina and then YB Khairun.
To make a positive difference. This is our lifeline. That's it.
It's your lifeline.
Not just mine, but our future generations, my kids, our future generation, really. Yeah.
Wow. The sense of purpose. Well, thank you for what you're doing for all of us. YB Kyronisa, why are you dedicating your life to climate change?
Well, it's the right thing to do. If you don't do it, then who will? We don't have to wait for others to take the act. If you can do it, you just do it yourself. Together with others, of course. Can't do it on your own.
Wow. Well, I hope that we have another 630 climate advocate fighting the battle together with you after today.